Welcome to the Roundtable Podcast, where we say creating community around conversation. And one of my favorite things to do is to listen to men and women through podcasts and glean from them, learn from them. And just a few weeks ago, we had Andy Gamble. It was fantastic. Make sure you catch up on that and listen to that if you missed it. And today, we have one of my best friends. He's like a brother. A way older brother. His name is Jamie Corcoran.
Good to be here, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you, man. And Jamie, we have been, I was trying to think about probably about good 10 years being close friends.
Absolutely.
And walking through ministry, trying to figure it all out. Gone through a lot of difficult times together and a lot of good times together. Celebrate and still going.
That's it.
We've changed tremendously, but our relationship and friendship has grown and changed with it. And, you know, a lot of people, when I meet them and they ask me who I am and what I do, and I say, you know, I'm a pastor and, you know, I'm married 13 years and have 3 kids, and people are like a bit taken aback by that. But your story far blows that out of the water. And so I want the first thing to jump in, hear your story, hear, you know, who you are, your background, when you were married first, when you first had your first kid, and when you took over your first and only church. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, for a second there, I thought you were going to say your first kiss. I thought that's going to be awkward. So I'm glad it was first kid. Yeah. So basically, like most young Irish guys, grew up in a Catholic home, Catholic in name, not so much in practice. Did the usual things: communion, confirmation. Who doesn't want to get a free couple of €100?
Punt back in the day.
That's it, exactly. A few punts and, you know, dress up and have all the attention. But long story short, I hit a crisis point, as most people do in their teenage years. You're just wondering about life, meaning, purpose, all those things. And I was introduced to a person who described themselves as Christian, which, you know, we think we're Christians. I mean, I'm Catholic. I'm born a Christian. But this person wasn't referring to their birthright or their parents' religious tradition. They were talking about something that was meaningful and alive in their life and orientated them and their choices and shaped their values in a very powerful way. It was very real. Yeah. And that really messed with me. And, you know, being the kind of person I am, my nature is always to fight. Of course, you know, being from Carlow, it's part and parcel of what Carlovian means.
Part Carlow, part Cura.
No, pretty much
I think
Carlow.
it's the Cura is the fighter in you.
Well, we can dispute that later. But long story short, I wanted to understand this and, you know, basically debate it, ask questions. In my mind, like most people, you know, 16, young guy, I'm like, listen, I remember at least one biology class. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know, you know, science disproves God. Basically, and that was my viewpoint, and that we've kind of evolved our need for God, and that religion is nothing more than a system to oppress people, control them, and to make some very old, mean white men rich. Yeah, and that was my perspective. So it was very antagonistic. But as I got to know this person, I realized that there was no agenda underneath the surface. They just really loved God and had a very real faith, and that challenged me. And the more I tried to disprove it, the more it became real in my life. To a point where I actually was in Heidelberg, Germany on a rugby tour. And this friend had given me a Bible and kind of said, listen, you know, just give it a chance. And, you know, it wasn't... In my mind, it's like, again, typical art. It's like a lucky charm, right? So if the Bible's in the bag and the bag's in the plane can't fall out of the sky. You know what I'm saying? If the Bible's in the bag and the bag is in the locker room and I stay close to it, like its energy will emit onto me and give me good luck to help me beat the Germans, because everybody knows we need to beat the Germans all the time. So and then what happened was we actually won all 3 games, and you know what you're like, you know, 40 young lads on tour in Germany. It was crazy, shaving foam, broken windows, you know, the Polizei were called. It was awesome. And I hit a point where I think it was the 3rd night, I'm like, this is every young guy's dream. Like, the coaches can't control us, you know, we're winning, we're top dogs. If this is what life is all about, then why do I feel so empty? And so I found myself sitting down, opening this Bible. Didn't read a single thing, to be honest. I think it was the Gospel of Matthew, but I didn't read anything. But the minute I opened that book and kind of said, you know, God, if you're there, show yourself, the presence of God filled the room. Wow. And if I'm honest, that freaked me out. because that was not what I expected to happen. I'm thinking, I'll pray some prayer, and kind of like in the movies, there'll be silence and whatever. But I really felt this presence, and what it was like, it was love, and it was affirmation, and it was meaning and purpose, and it was all these things, peace. And so I didn't understand it. I just knew that God had answered a prayer. So I came flying home to Ireland and, like, you know, found my friend and was like, what is this? I need this. And basically this explained to me this was God. And if you surrender your life and submit your life and give him your life, he will come into your heart and fill you with the love and purpose that you've just experienced, you know, momentarily, forever.
Yeah.
And I did that. And then my life completely changed, because, you know, I'm 16. I come from, you know, not a terrible background. You know, my family and parents aren't bad people. We just had our challenges, but it definitely wasn't the normal upbringing. In fact, I didn't realize how dysfunctional we were until we found someone healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were really a dysfunctional family.
Ignorance is bliss.
I'm telling you, and I was the oldest, so, you know, younger brothers, cousins, the whole thing. But, like, you know, I was getting ready to leave school, fighting a lot, in with the wrong crowd. I was really angry with everyone all the time. You know, played drums in a rock band. The reason why I ended up playing rugby was because I got banned from every other sport in school. Like, I'm not from a rugby family, but I got banned from, you know, GAA. I got banned from soccer. Got banned from basketball. Got banned from hurling. I whacked someone in the head with a hurley, and eventually the principal said, "We don't have any sports left in this school, so maybe you should do rugby." And I remember going to rugby, and it's a whole new thing. I didn't know he wouldn't have played rugby because, you know, traditionally it was a Protestant sport, and the first nights, you know, it was just tackling drill, and I just absolutely creased a guy, and the coach was like applauding me. I'm like, if I get applauded for this is my sport. You know what I'm saying? This is good. And that's how I ended up playing rugby. But when I gave my life to Christ, it was like immediate transformation. Like, I was completely changed.
And
like,
so it was more of an experience than it was information or like an intellectual decision.
It was an encounter.
Encounter.
Like, I would say this, it was my intellectual antagonism that led me to a point of encounter. Like, it wasn't like I went to a prayer meeting and out of the blue. It was like I had been wrestling with this intellectually, asking questions, pushing back on certain things. I was surprised, if I'm honest, how much perspective I didn't understand, because it's not taught to us in schools in Ireland about, for example, like even evolution, the fact that it's still a theory. You know, it's according to scientific method. You know, it has to be observable, has to be repeatable, and has to be measurable. And, you know, so we look like a monkey. Okay. But, like, there's a lot of evidence and scientific thought out there that counters that. And I was unaware of all this. So even from an intellectual point of view or standpoint, I was really surprised. But I wanted to say this. It came down to an encounter, and I made a choice to give him my life. And I just completely changed.
And the person who gave you the Bible was?
Well, it was my wife.
Yeah.
Listen. The truth is this.
Before she was your wife, of course.
Look, she was instrumental in changing my life. So I felt like to repay her
your life.
I'll marry her. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't
so
come in
you
that.
were 16. You're going out. When did you get married?
Yeah, 16. So I gave my life to Christ in July of that year. I left home, got a job, went back to school, did fifth year a second time, but now with a new focus. And got engaged when I was 17. Wanted to get married when I was 17, but if I'm honest, my parents wouldn't sign the release papers when we get married. So a bit bummed about that, but no worries, I'll wait a year. And then I did my leaving cert, obviously in June. Did 2 jobs to raise money, because then in August let me see if I get this right. I got my leaving cert results on a Tuesday. I got baptized on a Wednesday, and I got married on a Thursday. So I was married at 18.
The Craig David song.
There you go, man. Someone should make a song of that. And what's so funny is my wife, of course, not from Ireland, originally from Brazil. So even though she's a little bit older than me, when she came here, because she didn't speak English, she went 2 years back. So she went back into 6th year as a married woman.
Wow.
Which was kind of funny, because we made our regional newspaper, you know, front page, you know, young couple. But what was so funny was she went to a convent school, and when I was going out with her, I used to pick her up after school, and the principal would come along and shoo all the boyfriends. And I've been waiting all year long for my moment when she came along, and she's like, you know, move on. She came to me, and I'm leaning against the rail, and I said to her, I am not going anywhere. And she says, you will? I said, I'm not going anywhere. She says, well, who are you? And I said, my name. She says, who are you waiting for? And I said, Ludmila Corcoran. She goes, Ludmila Corcoran. I said, yeah, my wife. I'm waiting for my wife.
Yeah. I can totally picture that.
Yeah, so we didn't wait around.
And you didn't wait around either then for children?
No. Well, when you're young and you get married, kids kind of happen.
Yeah. It's passionate and one thing leads to another.
I love my wife, and from that love came children.
And so little Joshua, when was he born then?
Yeah, I think we were 20. Like we decided getting married wasn't a mistake. No one pressured us getting married. There was nothing. I mean, my parents were freaked out by this whole thing. Like, gosh, this God thing going on in your life, and now you're getting married, and what's going on, and all this stuff. But I know me. I think if everyone is willing to be real with themselves, they know who they are and they know where their weak spots are. And I didn't want to mess this up. I want to do this thing right. So if I'm going to honor God, I'm going to honor God. So if this is the woman for me, why wait 10 years? People say, oh, go on a trip, buy a house, get a dog, experience life. And I'm going, why does it have to be at the expense of the relationship? Why can't we do it together?
Yeah.
And so our philosophy was, and has been, because we just celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary, that we've done everything together. And that's been great. And I haven't lost out anything, neither has she. We've very much been a team and very much been best friends. And actually, I think this year or next year, we're actually going to be longer together than we existed apart from each other. Which is so strange, because I'm not like 50, I'm like 33, so, which is really cool and really exciting.
It is cool.
Yeah, so we decided that's what we want to do. We wanted to do that, and I went off and did a Bible college, and she did an art course for a while, and then a business course, and then we decided to have Joshua, our oldest, so he's 13.
It's crazy, mad. You have a teenager as a son.
I have a teenager, yes I do, which is it's great. I actually love it, because I like a little bit of, verbal scuffle, so he comes along with the attitude, and I'm like, okay, let's go, son.
Yeah.
But he's a great boy.
And so how old are you when you had Joshua then?
20, I think.
20, right.
33, 13, 20, yep.
And then you finished up college pretty soon after, no?
Yeah, actually it was on my third year.
Right. And then what happened? You started getting into leadership.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Because it's such a unique story, because, nowadays we live in the age where everything is about preparing to perfection, and don't give someone too much responsibility that can break them, and the whole idea of like you have to grow into your role. But you did the complete opposite. What happened?
Well, like I said, my journey began with an encounter. So I discovered Jesus before his church. And when I discovered his church, even though, it looks nothing like what most of our churches look like now, it was very small, didn't have a lot of people in a hotel. I immediately understood this is his church. And to love Jesus is to love his church. Yeah. As one person said, you cannot love Jesus and not love his church. Like that's a contradiction in terms as a Christian. Yeah. And so I just wanted to help. So what was I good at? Well, I played drums in a rock band, okay? Which, to be honest, not all small churches appreciate a heavy metal drummer joining the worship team. I played my heart out for the Lord, and then they gave me, those little brush sticks,
right? Yeah,
which was a bit of an insult, but hey,
sign,
you know what? It's a test of my humility. And then I ended up volunteering, welcoming people, and then I ended up volunteering in the kids' church. I just literally volunteered everywhere, anywhere where there was a need. I felt like my worship to God wasn't contained to my singing. It was in my lifestyle, my service.
Yes, very good.
And so, I didn't ask questions like, what did I want to do? It's like, where is the need? And that just meant that there was opportunities. A lot of times people are looking for opportunities, and I said, just be available.
Yeah.
Just be available, and opportunities will come. So I hadn't read a John Maxwell book to tell me that. I was just innocent and eager and hungry and willing to serve. And of course, opportunities came, and then different leadership roles came. In fact, the first leadership role I had was when I became a Christian, I was so convinced all my friends needed to hear about this that I just started witnessing to them. It became the most natural thing to me. I remember one time after a game standing up in a dressing room, these boys standing up and just basically proclaiming the gospel, and some lads, insulted and mocked and jeered, and others really were like, that's fair play to you, that took courage,
Yeah.
But within a year, that church I was part of didn't have a youth group, but I just started witnessing to my friends, and they start getting saved. And so we had 50 odd people in my mother-in-law's kitchen every week.
Wow.
I didn't have a clue what I was doing. We were just, playing games and, whatever. And I would take what I'd learned from a devotional and share it. And that was my first introduction to leadership. It was a complete accident. But then from that, I decided to study and grow, and I felt like I had a responsibility if I'm leading people to, am I equipped to lead them and so on.
And that's when I first met you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when you brought your youth group
your
to our
youth
group.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we were like
that.
this mega church, all these people. Your man's got a microphone. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't it be great one day to have a microphone?
Yeah.
And
how far we've come.
Well, you have.
We've got more, Michael. We've got two at least.
But long story short, the point is I just kept serving, and that led to a point where I was in a role of leadership in our church, helping another church. Actually, I was helping 2 churches, 3 churches actually at one point in the area, just helping as anyone I could. And then one day I was tapped on the shoulder by a mutual friend and mentor to say, hey, would you consider moving to Navan?
From Carlow to Navan.
Navan. So Joshua was 9 months old.
Wow.
And it was in my 3rd year of college. And I was like, well, I have no ambition.
But it wasn't just to move to Navan. It was to do what?
Well, to take over there was a church.
Take over a church.
That had been planted and needed leadership. So we went home, we prayed, and we said, sure. We want God to save Ireland. Navan's a good place to start. Why not?
Yeah. And so you took over the church, and, many people will know the story of Lighthouse and how it's grown and thrived over the last 13 years. 13 years. And so you're 33 now. That was 21. You're doing it 12 years now. How do you feel about now looking back? How do you feel like when you especially in this time, COVID lockdown, everybody's been thinking about their whole lives and their past and everything. How do you feel about it now looking back?
I feel grateful. I mean, absolutely grateful, because one of the things you realize as you get quote unquote older, it kills me to say that, is how much you don't know.
Yeah.
When you're young, you think you know everything, you think you're great, think you're invincible, and old isn't necessarily age, it's experience. As you have kids, get married, whatever, and age too, you begin to realize that, you don't know as much as you think you know, and it's not as easy. And one of the things for me, and I know we've shared this tension before, this what would you call it, expectation management tension in our lives, that we want things to happen quick, because that's the problem. You have this amazing faith, this amazing promise, this amazing God, but God's timeline is very different. And so I'm just very grateful and thankful that my wife still loves me, and I got 3 amazing young boys, and I got, for the most part, great friends, and then you, and it's from the very beginning. I remember what it was like to work 2 jobs, lead a youth group, be involved in church, commute to college, have a wife and a child, and pray, Lord, I can't keep doing this, but I don't know what to drop. I can't drop the wife and kid, I can't drop the job, and I can't drop the ministry. What should I do? And the day that I was able to be released, because there was some financial, it wasn't like there was some great salary, but there was some financial support to make it possible, I was like, it is a privilege to be able to receive support to do ministry. Yeah. And 13 years later, it's still the same.
And I think that is what is really, really key about you and anyone who knows you. It's still the same.
Absolutely.
You stayed. It's the same. You didn't leave. So what are some of the things, and I'm very aware of this, and it's something we're talking about staying, because we live in a society now where it's about movement and change, and if you feel like it, well, then go here, then go there, and people are only in jobs for like a few months, not a few years. Marriage divorce rate is through the roof. People don't stay long in communities, but you stayed. What are some of the things you did to keep your heart soft in that, and to stay through it, and to be there and the same, be consistent?
Yeah, and I suppose this brings up an interesting question about, your relationship with God and your devotional life, if you want to call it that. And I remember when I was younger, I would read these books or hear these preachers talk about praying for 2 hours every day, and reading 5 chapters, and fasting every 10 minutes, and and all this stuff. And because you're genuine and you want to learn and grow and you want to be effective, you kind of go, okay, well, if that's what it takes, that's what I'll do. But then, of course, you try to do those things, and then life comes along, and life is not some static discipline. Life is dynamic. And when you have other people, you're like, when you're young and single, and all you got to take care of is you, it's easy to live like this. But when you have other people in your life, maybe you're responsible for parents or siblings, or you have a spouse or kids, life is a lot more dynamic. You don't get to choose what you want to do every day. And so it's hard. And so a big thing for me was learning earlier on that life is dynamic, and so my relationship with God should be dynamic too. But I shouldn't sacrifice my relationship with God because of the dynamism of life. So just keeping that sweet spirit, just being able to, even today on the way down, just do my devotional. Like I was a person for years, I journaled for years, and it was so important to me. I created a culture in our church where everyone journaled, or I wanted everyone to journal. All my leaders journal. So, we use the whole SOAP thing, scripture observation, application, prayer. And I think I did that for the better part of 9 years. Just journaled nearly every day. It was just my way of processing and so on. And then this year I felt like God was saying, take a break from that. Right. And so this year, myself and my wife, we did a devotional together, an audio one, the Nicky Gumbel one, which is fantastic. And the Bible app, can't recommend it enough. So the way down this morning, I'm listening to my devotional, I'm praying, I'm, kind of 20 minutes out, and I'm like, I was about to turn on something, a podcast, and listen to someone. Not really, but let's believe it was you, so you can feel better about yourself.
All the sermons.
And it's true. And I just felt God saying, just worship me. Just give me this time, And I decided to throw on some worship music, and just worship God in the car. So I just feel like that's what it's about, is never losing that amazement, that awe, that genuine love for God. And it's hard. There's times where it is hard. There's times when you don't feel that. You don't feel God saying, worship me, but you just do it anyway. Yeah. Because just like in marriage, like in a parent, you don't quit when things get hard. Yeah. Because the success of finishing this race with the same spouse, and your kids loving you, and your kids loving God, and it doesn't matter how big or small or the church. That matters in a sense, but that's not going to define who I am. Yes. My relationship with God, my marriage, and how my kids view me, how my kids talk about me when they're where I am, that matters to me. And so I'm very intentional about laying the foundation now for it. That's why I say to people, people say, have you got any regrets? I don't have any regrets, because when I was at that age, 16, 17, I said, I want to live my life regret-free. People go, well, how do you do that? And I say, by being intentional about expectations and goals and sacrificing things to make them a reality. So I don't have regrets. There's things I wish I could have done that were outside my control. Like people ask me all the time, church planters and different leaders, what would you have done in a ministry sense? Yeah. And I say, I would have come to open arms. I would have loved to come to a church like this, be under a leader like your dad, and just serve and learn. Because there's so much stuff you pick up just being in the room, just helping out.
That wasn't your story.
No.
That wasn't meant to be.
No, it wasn't. Of course not. So I can't regret it because I couldn't control it. But if I could, there you go. Absolutely. So I get to be in open arms now talking to you. So God is faithful.
But that is so good because, most people, right, it centers around them and what they want and their expectations and their goals. But the answer you just gave is about relationship with Jesus, and that's so true. Like the people who keep their hearts soft are those who stay close to Jesus, and then you will stay or go if that's what God is calling you to do. And so you've obviously done a lot of introspection, and I'm sure a lot of it has happened in the last 6 months with lockdown and whatnot. What lessons have you learned about yourself and leadership, especially, leading a church who you haven't seen them face to face for 7 months? So what are some of the things that you learned about yourself?
Learn about myself. Well, I suppose, like the old saying goes, it's not about what happens to you. It's about how you react to it. And so COVID happens. Voila. Here it is. Ready or not, COVID, boom. And all the various extrapolations of its application personally. So whether it's financial, whether it's the church, whether it's your health, it's there. So what are you going to do about it? And so the first 4 or 5 weeks, I was like everybody else in this thing. Every other leader, every other person just freaking out going, what is normal? What is success? How do we do this? Listening, reading, phone calls. At the same time, people were ringing me asking for advice. You're going, oh gosh,
Zoom calls.
I don't even know what I'm doing yet. Like, how can I tell you what to do? But very quickly, one thing I was able to clarify early on was that this is going to be about family for me. You mean, most of the listeners won't know this, but like when you're in ministry, especially when you're leading a church, it's a lot of meetings, a lot of late nights, a lot of jumping in the car. I've got other things I'm involved in, other ministries I help support. ARC, CCI, different ones, and so that requires some stuff. And then there's a bit of travel. You know, I calculated in August that from September to February. So from September 2019 to February 2020, I was out of the country I think it was 14 times. And then from March to August, a total of zero. And that hasn't changed. Because, of course, I count Northern Ireland as my island. So I haven't left the country. But so family, so that's what we're going to focus on. I'm going to take this thing as a gift and build into family. And, you know, that sounds romantic. It was hard because you got 3 boys cooked up in a house. That's hard, you know. But that we made that a focus, a priority. And that was great, you know. We've created lots of great memories.
That's key, isn't it?
Especially as my oldest boy was turning 13. And he's my first teenager. So I was like, okay, this is an important transition. I want to really figure out how I can, you know, be there for him and help him. I'm not the most emotionally sensitive person. Obviously, you know, God has a way of maturing you over the years and so on. But it's something I have to be super intentional about, because I can just get into work mode and go. And I can go until everyone behind me is dead or gone, you know. So being intentional with slowing down, resting, and pouring to my family, that to me was the biggest thing. So you asked me, the question is, what did I learn about myself? I'm not sure I have one thing. I think I've learned a lot in general. I think one of the things that stood out to me during this time was just my love for reading. You know, reading's always been a practical utensil. I have to read to learn for the next challenge, but actually just enjoying reading, you know. We talked 2 weeks ago about a book that I read by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, The Gulag Archipelago, which is a beast of a book. It's a beast of a book. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
You can just tell me about it now. Listen.
It's about you know, Soviet oppression and 5 million people dying in gulags, these concentration camps, and this guy Alexander. And it's just horrible, but it's an amazing book. I mean, the reason why I read it was because someone said it was the most important book written in the 20th century, and I'm going, well, I was born in the 20th century, so if that's the most important book of my century, I probably should read that book. I did. I loved it. And now I'm reading a biography about Winston Churchill. So that space and time, the unrushed time for reading has been really cool. That's great.
So it's investing in yourself,
but not that's what I'm saying, but not for that reason. Just because I enjoy it.
Right.
That's been kind of the it's not another Maxwell or Chris Hodges or another kind of, I'm going to do this so I can get. It's actually I just enjoy this. I just geek out and
personal well-being.
Yeah.
And so I have called you on many occasions because you've been ahead of me in terms of your leadership and carrying the weight and the burden, and go, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? You know, how do you deal with this? And a lot of it is mental. So how do you not stay in your head? Because that is what I find is stay in your head, you're dead. And it's the one thing for me I keep coming against, and I think, actually, especially in this 21st modern, people, the modern man, the modern woman, it's all about staying in your head, and that's when people tend to hit a roadblock. What are some of the practices, hobbies, just little principles, little things you do to not stay in your head and keep your mind healthy?
Yeah, I think routine is hard. Rhythm is easy. So if if you're a routine person and that works for you, build routines and let the routine serve you. If your life's a little bit more dynamic, then think more rhythms. What do you need to flow well? What works well for you? So I think about rhythms. So I know I'm a person that I naturally work hard and work long on. I just keep working. It's just the way I'm wired. I just keep going. I don't really have an off switch. I just kind of keep going. And there was times even during COVID where I could spend literally 14 hours at my desk, which is contrary to the family value. So, my wife was very quick and going, hang on a second.
You said this.
Exactly. Now it's time to do this. So that's not a problem to me. I'm not that person. So I have to be intentional about rest, about replenishment. So friendship is massive to me. So having friends and intention, because everything's about this vision to change the country and to see the kingdom of God come, and to really I really want to see and affect change in our nation. The reason why I do what I do isn't because God called me to be a pastor. It isn't because someone offered me a job. It's because I really believe that we can transform this nation. The spiritual landscape of Ireland can change in our lifetime. That's what I'm committed to. That's why I'll help anyone who's on board the same vision. So when you're wired that way and you carry that burden, like everything's about how does this get that? How does this move me that? How does it, and that can be really exhausting. And one thing I can say for certain is you cannot maintain that if you're not healthy. So having to go, that's great, we're going to keep going there. However, having some friends is important.
Yeah.
You know what? Diet and exercise is important. I know it's an up and down thing. That's another kind of rhythmic thing. Just trying to, like, for most of COVID, like I was, because the gyms are shut down and stuff, I was like running. Like, I hate running with a passion. Honestly, I look at people running and go, ugh, But I found myself running because there's nothing else to do to stay fit and healthy. And then when the thing reopened, then the training went out the window, which is kind of like, well, that seems a bit, opposite of how things should be. And only recently have I got back into it. But again, it's a rhythm. So I know I need this. I know I'm better when I'm doing this. So I came off the rails for about 8 weeks and gained a few kilos, which thank God is hidden underneath this extremely large jumper. and then got back on it, because I know my rhythm, and then just like, I think if someone were to follow me around for a week, I think they'd be surprised how much, I don't want to say fun, but how much play is in my life. Like, I'm really intentional about having fun. So, hobbies, like I play tag rugby on a Friday night with a bunch of guys. Love it. Tore my hamstring 2 weeks ago, not so cool, but I'm back this Friday. Watch out. Golf. Love golf because golf is the antithesis of who I am. It requires patience. It requires calmness. It requires, an absence of aggression. 3.5 hours long. I mean, but I love it. It really just calms me down, slows me down, brings, as Bill Hybels used to say, the RPMs of my soul just come down. Yeah. And I love it because it's also social. So I'm able to, hang out with someone and talk and walk and all that kind of stuff. So I think being intentional with play is huge. Finding those things that replenish you and understanding they aren't additional extras, that if you complete your work you do, they are essential in you being effective in your work. Yeah. You can either rest from work or you can work from rest. And I'm a person that I like, and I'm better and I'm healthier, and everyone else around me likes it when I'm working from rest.
Well, you're learning to enjoy life, aren't you?
Absolutely.
And then you become more enjoyable.
That was profound.
That was profound.
That was very good. Someone quote that, tweet that.
And that's something, me going on my journey with you, seeing that's something you've discovered. Like, because both of us are extremely driven to the point where we would run so far ahead that our wives, our families, and everyone would be far left behind. But it's not like, I think as well, it's about learning to play the long game. Yeah. And that, hey, I want to be in this in 20 years. I want to be just as passionate. So therefore, fun, play, like you said, is really important. I'm only discovering that now. So, watch out for when we're not going to kick your butt in golf, because I'm no good at it anymore at all. But
if you beat me, I'll
play in football or something.
I'll just hit you with a golf club.
But, so, you've got a great experience in leadership, but yet still a young leader, right? And so for every young leader, and we are our young leaders, even from a 16-year-old right through to a 40-year-old, we're just starting off. Oftentimes it can be young in experience, not just young in age, but also for aspiring leaders, okay? So you have learned a lot of lessons. You have adapted a lot of things. You've gone through a lot of hardship. And we're not talking, like, there's not many leaders we could invite to speak here right now from an Irish Christian context. We're probably talking about maybe not even a dozen, right? But you've gone on that journey. What are 3 things or lessons that you've learned that you would share with someone else, going, make sure you do or don't do these 3 things? What would be 3 things?
3 things. Well, I suppose in vain what we've already discussed today, I think your relation, and it's going to sound cliches, but your relationship with God has to be number 1. And like any relationship, your relationship with God, you're not a victim to your relationship with God. It's not an accident. It's not something that just happens. It requires work. Anyone who's married understands exactly what I'm talking about. It requires work. You got to put effort in. Not because we have to earn his favor or his love or his acceptance. The motive isn't to earn something. It's because that's what relationship is in essence. It's a give and it's a take. And as young men, driven people, as people with ambition and vision and a sense of destiny, it's very comfortable to get busy. Because busyness fills the hole in our life. Yeah. It fills that place we don't want to go. in our vulnerability to ask deep questions. But what should fill that void is our relationship with God.
Yeah. So
And I can't say I've been great at that. I can't say I'm perfect at that. I'm just saying I've maintained that as a focus, a goal, a priority, the highest priority. And even when I talked about worship, I'm not a good singer. I'm not a worship person. It's not my vibe. But like, if the Holy Spirit says worship me, I'm gonna worship Him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna be sensitive to what He wants me to do, and so that's how I've lived my life. So I think number one, I think that's huge, really important. I think to have it as not in name but in practice. And it's not, again, because it's dynamic. It's going to slip away. You got to pull it back up. It's going to get challenged by something else. You got to bring it back in. It naturally, life will pull you away. It's funny. Everything in life pulls you. Nothing in life pushes you towards God. Everything pulls you away. That should be a hint. That obviously there's there's something working against that. Second thing I'd say is, again, relationships. I think if you're going to be healthy in relationships, and especially, like you said, people who are aspiring to be leaders, you need friends who can tell you the truth. People that are close enough to you that they can see your BS and call it. Or at least, maybe not confront you, but at least challenge your thinking. Like, here's a perspective. Because, when you meet someone at a conference, or when we used to do those things called conference, remember those? It's small talk, how's it going? And it's always the what I call the Instagram highlights. It's like, boom, 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 boom. I mean, the thing's falling apart behind you, but like, boom, 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 boom. And especially if you're a platform person, you can sell anything to anybody. You know what I'm saying? You can go to a conference and be like, listen, our church is, I mean, honestly, if Jesus were here, he'd be in our church. It's just that good. And that's fine, okay? I think sometimes we do that in Ireland because it actually is so depressing that we want to actually celebrate.
We got to speak it up.
We tell someone what's going on, the positive, so we can hear it back and be encouraged. So I'm not saying it's necessarily vainglory or egotistical, but we need people that we can just go like, here's something I'm really challenged with, or here's something I'm thinking about, or here, even the conversation we had over lunch, here's some things, and just here's a thought, and here's an angle. And sometimes it is a great, well done. Sometimes it's, well, have you thought about this? Like, you need people in your life.
Well, the way I see it is people who are not impressed by you, but love you if you are not the pastor.
That's why you're in my life,
or
Sean.
If you're not the leader the next day, or, or
absolutely.
if you, that's a real friend. You know what I mean? That's, so I really agree with you on that one. And so what would be the third thing?
Well, before I finish the second one, I think then with the relationship thing is be intentional about it, because again, through COVID, like, when I arrived here today, you were like, hey, haven't seen in ages. And I'm like, even though we've talked on the phone, it's been like, yeah, we actually haven't seen each other in ages. And it's so funny how that can slip with time, because we don't think, because it's like when you go get your heart checked out, which is something you got to do when you get older. And it's like, beep, beep, beep. Oh, it's working. Great. I mean, like, it's not an emergency right now. But there's more to, having a healthy heart than just it stopping. Yeah, that's good. And so there's other things we look for, like, no, I'm no expert, but, what's your cholesterol level like? What's your blood pressure like? There's other indicators that aren't a priority until your heart stops, that you realize, I need to watch these things. And so I think it's important to have intentional times and settings where you can have those relationships. Great. And a third thing I would say to young leaders is just work hard. Work hard and be consistent. I think you nailed it at the very beginning. There's something in our generation. There's a dissatisfaction for the present. That's dangerous. We're here, but we're not never here. We're always on to the next thing. We're always living in tomorrow. And I think that's also affected by our Instagram culture. Yeah. That everyone else, life seems better everywhere else. And everyone else seems to be having fun. Why is that? Why aren't I having fun? And you're going, well, if you put as much effort into your Instagram account as some of those people are in terms of propping up a reality that isn't real, your life would probably look amazing too. But that's not sustainable. And so, like you said, like and I saw the stats in this too, like in most Fortune 500 companies in America, the turnover of, especially our generation, is like 2 years or something, which is crazy. I know in America with youth pastors now, it's like 2 years. Which, that's fine if that's what the Lord's doing. But if the Lord's calling everyone every 2 years to move on, there's something strange about that.
You can't build anything like that.
There's power in lasting. Yeah. There's power in remaining. There's power in staying. And I think just, like, don't worry about the door that God's going to open, because He's going to open it. Worry about the room you're in.
Very good.
Ask yourself the question, before I leave this room and move to the next room, how did I leave this room? Did I leave it better than how I found it?
Yeah.
If God's will was for me to move on somewhere else, fair enough. God's going to make it abundantly obvious. Move on somewhere else. The question is, when I was given responsibility for this church 13 years ago, and if I were to hand it off to someone else, what am I handing off? Is it stronger? Is it healthier? Is it maturer? You know, am I handing off something in a better condition than I found it? That's the spirit, I think, of stewardship and generosity and service that's manifest in working hard. That ultimately, I think, opens up the door to more opportunity. People see that, God sees that, and he goes, oh, now you're ready for this. So I think a lot of people are looking around for the next opportunity. Where's the next thing? Just be faithful.
Yeah.
Be faithful and work hard.
So relationship with God, relationship with others, and remaining.
Yeah.
The 3 R's. Very good.
Oh, there's a sermon coming on.
So thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate you. Love you. So grateful for you.
Thanks,
and
man.
of course, Lighthouse Church.
Yes, come on.
In Navan and Blanchardstown. And I hope you enjoyed. And make sure you continue watching and listening every Sunday night at 8.